The panic never really starts until the mainstream media starts to tell you that there's a problem and you should panic. Well, we are at there's 50-year lows in wheat production, a Godzilla El Nino, the war's going on, and the messaging starts now. You better buy food. So if the mainstream media is telling everybody there's a problem with our crops globally and it's going to get really expensive by the end of the year, let's take a look at the crop tour and then see how you can prepare for these events that are inbound. So looking back at their history, great civilizations have risen to power and then completely collapsed. What was the trigger for that? What was the cause of that downfall of their world at the time? Desertification. Let's take a look at Ur, which used to be the land of milk and honey. Babylon, Sumeria, 6,000 to 7,000 years prior. And then the Egyptians took over. We're looking at an aerial view, 1922 Ur. Huge amount of artifacts being pulled out of this area. But what do you notice that's different today versus 6,000 years ago? Yeah, there's no water and there's no food. That is the main thing that connects all of this across history. If you're looking for a single point of failure through the timeline of thousands of years, it is the lack of food that is the cause that pulls the rug out of every single great society. I would encourage you to go back, like the Romans are low-hanging fruit, but go further back to the Hittites, the Assyrians, the Sumerians. Go across the different parts of our planet over to China and look at the dynasties, how they collapse on a regular cycle. Go to South America with what we know pre-500 AD back to when the Mayans collapsed at their great period and then falling approximately 800 AD. Well, something has changed the food production ability of the society, and we're here at it in a modern fashion of the same thing that's been repeated through history. So the crystal ball is your history book, because we already know what happens when the food gets disrupted. And we're in a massive disruption phase right now. Got the war going on, energy prices are spiking, got the diesel and all the farm inputs just going incredible. They're going to put new bands on the chart for how high the prices are going right now. And then with the new update from the USDA about the wheat crop, a spike in prices 2 days, limit up on the amount of price increase for just wheat. I mean, it's getting very noticeable, and now the mainstream media broadcasting. So this is the messaging for the rest of the world to panic. When mainstream media grabs onto it, you've lost you're out of time, literally out of time. You're competing with the rest of normie consciousness that didn't know about this 3 days ago. U.S. wheat production set to fall to lowest in 50 plus years. Now, in all estimations and research and every bit of information I've seen on this, that is going to go lower, far lower. There's very little rain in the forecast. The dryness that we're experiencing now has not been something seen in nearly 100 years for planting. And it's just going to continue. Corn is going to be next, following on the wheat. So it's going to hit all of our major grain crops. Along with the fertilizer disruptions, we won't have enough to get full yield out of this either. U.S. wheat production is from the USDA, taking us back to 1972. Now, just in my estimation, again, that is going to continue drawing further downward, and they'll have to expand this chart out into somewhere pre-green revolution. 1940s, we're going to come down to some very low yields this year, which is downright scary, actually. So U.S. winter wheat ratings, that means it's telling you is it good wheat, bad wheat. Expect a high inflation at the minimum. Another chart for you, Nebraska winter wheat percent rated as good or excellent. And I would encourage you to find the 5% minimal red bar at the far right over there compared to the rest of the years. Now you can find some similarities. We go back to 1989. But again, what followed in the late 80s was inflation, food inflation. There were some stock market issues, and where it seems like we're repeating another chapter of that as well. Coming up, Nebraska winter wheat, you could look at it in an inverse fashion too, and how much is rated very poor at this time. And that big red line is quite easy to see. So you can look at it in two different metrics, either
What if I told you it's not just cholesterol clogging your arteries anymore? Researchers and heart surgeons have recently found something shocking: microplastics. Those tiny particles from everyday items were discovered in 58% of the people with arterial plaque. And here's the scary part: those with microplastics in their arteries had a 4.5 times higher risk of a heart attack, stroke. Think about that. Those particles are everywhere. They're in your food, they're in your water, in the air, everything you touch every day, like your phone, your steering wheel, the food packaging. And it could be one of the hidden reasons heart disease just keeps rising. Now, sure, there's talk in Washington about cracking down, but when the plastics industry is worth over $1 trillion, change isn't coming anytime soon. So the real question is, what can you do right now? Well, there are a few simple, natural ways to help support healthy blood pressure and keep your arteries clear, including a simple drink that's been shown to lower blood pressure, a fast-acting stress technique, and even a unique tea that's helping people see real results fast. I put everything into a short video so you can see exactly how it works. So right now, scan this QR code or go to myprimal.life/adapt to watch it. That's myprimal.life/adapt. It could be one of the simplest ways to take control of your blood pressure starting today. So click on that link in the description box below.
How little of the excellent wheat there is, or how much of the poor wheat there is. So they're giving it to you in different digestible bits there. Colorado winter wheat, you're looking at the red on the far right again, almost nothing. For excellent. Now, this is just a trend. It's across every area that we're growing wheat. So the U.S. crop progress, and once we get into the crop tours later on next month and beginning in July, you're going to watch these numbers just freak out the entire commodities market. Corn and soy are going to follow in this same trajectory because corn won't have the fertilizer. But if you're looking at the winter wheat conditions in red there, this is of the total entire nation, only 28%, which has a lot to do with the rainfall, the dryness that's out there, and the drought conditions. But it also has a lot to do with the amount of fertilizer that's available for the farmers to plant. And also because of the disruptions and all the chemical disruptions across the Middle East, that would include the herbicides. So, I'm not a fan of GM crops in any way, shape, or form, but they need that Roundup Ready, varieties. What they do is they pre-spray the fields. So these competition weeds are there because they don't have the herbicides this year. So the yields are going to be down because other plants are pulling nutrients. And when they apply fertilizer, you're going to have a ton of weeds in there that aren't normally there and then you see how this circle goes. Chemicals are disrupted from the Middle East. Diesel's disrupted. It costs more just to get it in the ground. Fertilizer costs more. But to get that boost in yield from the fertilizer in the GM crop arena, you need to put on a bunch of herbicide in the beginning to allow those plants to, sprout out with no competition. Weeds, now there's competition. So you can start to see this herbicide, fungicide. There's not really enough. And the fungicides are for when things are really wet and blighty to try to, take the mold off the crops. What about insecticides? Are we going to get some insect damage? Absolutely. It's going to be the year of the insect. Like these things have repeated in history. You get insect locust plagues, your crops are gone. You get the mice infestations, rodent infestations, gone. Oh, wait, that tiptoes into the Hanta thing. How's the grain crops going to be affected by all this mouse talk around the world too? So you can see this is more than a trifecta of effects. This is a complete encircling of our entire food system output chain being, knocked out at the knees. And you need to ask yourself, could this be prevented, or who could turn the switch on again, or is the switch meant to stay turned off? Back to the May 2026 winter wheat production, United States by class. Now I'm looking at the production unit top right. You see the 4 segments here, top right. And we just compare it from the estimates. We're based on obviously the averages or last year's production more heavily. 36% down. So that is the miss beyond all misses for ag traders. You dropping 36%. That's, this is a 6 Sigma event here. Soft red winter wheat down almost 15% of the projections, and the white winter down 5%. Even a 5% drop would drive markets, but near 36%, near 40%, that's just gonna. We're into the stratosphere currently. So the wheat percentage, very poor and poor. You can see across the drought belt is what I'm going to call that now. We used to call it the Midwest grow belt. Now it's the drought belt. Red is, well, things that are tremendously damaged. And even over in Virginia, which is, it's been raining a little more over there than in the Midwest. So I'm just curious how their numbers are so low. But this rolls right into it. The U.S. winter wheat drought hits an all-time high. So again, we're going back into the 1930s for some of these measurements. So we're well at the well over 100-year mark of drought. Now, some say it's the all-time driest ever recorded for this time of the year for crop planting. Others are saying it's similar to the Dust Bowl, but whatever way you look at it, it's incredibly dry and affecting crop yields. So now, just taking it in total here, the winter wheat for the U.S., at least as today, now this, again, with the drought and the lack of fertilizer, this is going to continue downward. So when the real crop tours come in, like in June and July, these numbers, we're going to see some price rises that are absolutely going to shake the foundation of your reality of how fast and how expensive food can become. U.S. wheat production 26, 27, like the trade averages based on the averages over the last 5 years plus last year, and they smashed that together as a total. Not exactly just one set of standards by one company putting this out or one set of universities. It is all of this as a congruent agreement on an average of how much wheat will be produced. So the trade average, meaning all the people with the charts and the quantitative data, we're putting it at 1.73 billion bushels. Actual is 1.56, but that's all the wheat. Now we need to dissect it into winter wheat, and I do want to split the hair on this one because the regular wheat's not going to do very much better in drought conditions. So let's go to the winter wheat, second line down. Trade averages before the fertilizer was 1.42 billion, and then once we got the fertilizer disruption, they're like, oh, we need to lower that to nearly 1.2 billion, and then in reality, we're looking at just a little over a billion. So look at the gigantic difference in that. 1.4 billion bushels down to just nearly 1 billion bushels, meaning they're going to have to dig into the carryover stocks. And this is another thing I'd spoken about a few videos ago was USDA's mission statement is not to give you the truthful information about how many crops or how many bushels are in the silos or whatnot. Their mission statement is to stabilize agricultural markets. So with that said, have they been giving us the truthful numbers of what's in the silos? Because if they've been lying, then when we get into this at 1 billion bushels and they're going to need to dig into the reserves over there, if the reserves aren't as plentiful as reported because of a, erroneous accounting error, then we're in some real problems. And the prices at that point are, this is what I talked about on the channel for years and years. This cycle was known, it was an inbound disruptive food production destroyer of civilizations. And it's here now. This war is amplifying it. And again, that's what I don't understand is we're into a food deficit period that was predicted on a multi-century, multi-millennia cycle anyway. These solar grand minima, they come, they go, and they're very tagged to collapse of civilizations. We were in one and beginning this anyway, and I'm so shocked that they would come and turn off everything agricultural input at a time when we were struggling agriculturally anyway. Now the forecast this year is for, they call it a mega El Nino or a grand El Nino, Godzilla Niño, which means it's going to run to the top of the charts here in terms of intensity. And El Nino traded 200 years on the ag markets. They know how it's going to pull the weather, precipitation, rainfall across the world. I mean, this is a well-known multi-century trade play here anyway. And when it does, the last El Nino at this intensity forecast to reduce the world's population by 3 to 4% because of loss of agriculture. We're in an ag deficit anyway, and if we get a big Godzilla Niño, as they're trying, again, it's media labeling. I don't know why everybody's pushing to the Godzilla Niño. But they're trying to instill this into you that we are going to lose massive amounts of food production this year, to the point where it might come to rationing. And if it does come to rationing, how are they going to give you a ration card? It's going to be digital. Digital ID will be required to procure your food. Now, again, all of this could have been easily prevented, and it can be turned off at a moment's notice. But the thumb screws keep being applied to the world's food supply. And you have to ask why so intensely, and why right now, and why there's zero possibility of negotiation to get this thing unlocked. And even if they do unlock it, we're going to lose this entire season of productivity. It won't come back again until next year. It's going to take 9-10 months to unsnarl the ridiculousness of plastic shortages, smelted metal shortages, all the inputs for our agriculture, all the diesel fuels. Everything is just going to take nearly a year to get it back to what it was just a few months ago, flowing normally, if this silliness stops today. But it doesn't seem to. It seems poised to increase in intensity. You're going to understand how civilizations collapsed. We are just another in a line of great empires and civilizations that have been wiped out due to lack of food production. Now, again, I will say it. Everybody's so focused on a barrel of oil and the cubic meter of natural gas. Oh, the energy. That's not the energy you need to focus on. You need to focus on the energetic calorie. Calories. That is the most important energetic unit on the planet, bar none. Nothing else. Everything else is built off of calories. No calories, there's no need for your oil because there's nobody around. So what's the most important thing for a human? Food, water, and air. The calorie, that is the unit of accounting we need to keep our eyes on. Please share this with your friends and family. You got to copy the link and then share it out. Algorithms none too kind here in YouTube. I appreciate your time. This is a very important subject to get deeper into. And people need to know what's on the horizon for us, because when the real details get up here in June and July, what we've seen pre-crop tour time is going to take it to markets are going to have to rethink how they operate, because the deliverables won't be there, and then things you get from the factory with the plastic shortages, those kind of box packaged foods, those are already being disrupted anyway. Not enough plastics to pack them. Now we need to add this in. This is like the perfect storm here of just everything that could possibly go wrong in an agricultural supply chain world is going wrong all at the same time. And I will leave you with the last thought. Is it planned to turn it off like it is being turned off right now to bring us into a new monetary system globally? This is the only thing that could do it. It encompasses your food. It encompasses the energy. It encompasses finance. There's nothing really else that will do it. If you just take away the oil and the natural gas by itself, it doesn't have the effect of removing food as the base layer of our world and civilization. Once you remove that, everything else can be the blocks can be literally moved around one more time. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.